Hey there folks, this is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop, and this is part 6 of my spoiler talk for Jurassic World Dominion. In my last video, I went over how I felt about how this movie handled all the characters, but I had to dedicate a separate video to Dr. Alan Grant. He's my favorite character still breathing in this franchise, and to me, one of the most important things that this movie had to accomplish was completing his arc that started all the way back in 1993. In the original Jurassic Park, the most basic layer to his story is that he's a grump when kids are around. They're noisy, they're messy, they're expensive, some of them smell, which is not too great for Ellie Sattler, who wants to start a family with him. But his experience at Jurassic Park leads him to have a change of heart, not only with him spending the second half of the movie protecting Lex and Tim, but also because, as a lifelong dinosaur enthusiast, witnessing those dinosaurs in the flesh brings out that childlike wonder in him.
She was my favorite when I was a kid. Now I see she's the most beautiful thing I ever saw.
The deeper layer to his experience at Jurassic Park is that it makes him contemplate his whole purpose in life. Paleontology is what he has poured his life into. And now, with the dinosaurs being revived and people being able to see and study them up close rather than make educated guesses based on the fossils, it could render his passion a lost cause. Shortly after seeing that Brachiosaurus, what's going through his mind is, we're out of a job. Yet, all the while, the camera puts dramatic emphasis on what his job produces, not 1 minute after showing us the real thing. Yeah, that's always been my least favorite shot from the first movie. So with the distinct possibility that his life's work may now be for nothing, Grant is faced with a question.
What are you and Ellie gonna do now if you don't have to pick up dinosaur bones anymore?
I don't know, I guess. Guess we'll just have to evolve, too.
This line, though, never really saw a payoff as the Jurassic franchise proceeded. Before now, Grant's only other appearance was as the central character of Jurassic Park 3. I have another video explaining his character in that movie that I'll put on the end screen of this video. To sum up, the way that I always saw it was that because Jurassic Park was abandoned and forgotten about, and Grant and everyone else who saw it were bound to a non-disclosure agreement, he took a sigh of relief knowing that his passion would be just as relevant as ever, and it remained that way for 4 years. Until the world did find out, causing him to become really frustrated and finding it harder to accept the reality that the world was becoming more interested in the living dinosaurs than the fossils. While he doesn't let go of paleontology by the end of the third movie, he does grow to have more of an understanding to each their own attitude. But with Jurassic World Dominion, this was the time for Grant to evolve. With the Jurassic story being brought to a close, his story needed to along with it. And while most of my analyses with this movie have been predominantly negative, I will say that what it does with Grant's character is extremely hit and miss. Now, for a while, as Dominion was in the production stages, I was dead set against the notion of Grant still digging up bones after 20 years. I thought it would make most logical sense that he would already be changed when we first meet him again, given the change that the world has gone through. But thinking about it more, I saw the possibility that maybe he feels that paleontology is all that's left for him. He's grown old, there's hardly anyone left in his life, and he clings to his comfort zone because dinosaurs now loose in the world has only served to trigger his PTSD, which is a side of him that Jurassic Park 3 did briefly visit. Yes, it was through the raptor dream, which, as some other fans have pointed out, does also have a link to the scene earlier in the movie when he was talking to the parrot.
Okay, say my name. Is my name Alan? Is my name Alan?
Alan!
So there was a reason for that scene, it's just that the execution was way too silly. So the way I pictured him in Dominion is that he'd be something of a war veteran character, that he would have similar development to, say, Ellen Ripley in Aliens. She starts out wrestling with this post-traumatic stress, but still makes up her mind to go back to LV-426. On one hand, it's because it will get her position as a warrant officer back, but you also get the feeling she's doing it because she feels that the way to handle her fear is to face it head on, and rest assured that the source of her fear is extinguished once and for all. Similarly, I imagine for there to be this animal control force dealing with the dinosaurs that is calling on Dr. Grant for his expertise and prior first-hand experience with these animals, especially raptors. For a while, he refuses, but his first motivation to join is when he finds out that Ellie is with them. She could be studying the diets of the herbivores. After she tries to convince him, he eventually decides, okay, this is the reality of what's going on in the world. It's time for me to face my fears and see what I can contribute to this new world. That would have been a fantastic way of depicting his evolution that was hinted at in the first movie. As I keep saying, when you have dinosaurs in our world and the OG characters involved, the scenarios write themselves. It was the perfect chance for all of them to be brought back into the picture in an organic and realistic way. But sadly, essentially everything that Fallen Kingdom set up is just brushed aside in this movie, so not all of them are included that organically. Actually, most of the protagonists do have a legit reason for being there. Grant, quite bizarrely, is the only exception. His role in the plot is essentially just tagging along. That being said, though, Grant does still undergo some character growth that is deserving of recognition. As we're reintroduced to him, he does still have his head in the ground with his paleontology, and it does make sense what's going on with him. He's trying to get people interested, but naturally it's not grabbing anyone because living dinosaurs are among us now. You know, considering how little the state of the world has to do with the plot of the movie, and how little purpose Grant has to the plot, it's quite telling that he's the only character that this new world has any remote effect on. And even he's debatable because he's probably been used to this ever since Jurassic World opened. For this first moment with him, though, I was liking where his character arc seemed to be headed. So then Ellie Sattler drops by, and it's rather weird the way that one guy lets Grant know that she's looking around his tent. He just goes, "Dr. Grant, you might want to come see this." What is up with him being that vague about it? Wouldn't it have been more natural and even kind of funny if the guy was like, "Dr. Grant, there's a woman in your tent?" And then Grant would be like, "Well, it's about time." Okay, maybe not that part, but you get the idea. Ellie is there to let him know why she's going to investigate Biosyn, and invites him to come along. Now, Grant's motivation to go with her, I don't have a problem with. What I have a problem with is Ellie's reason for inviting him. She says that she's in need of a witness, which doesn't she kinda already have Ian Malcolm for? And she says that she needs someone whom she can trust, and if that's her only reason, I don't really buy that he would be the first person she comes to about this, considering how evidently it's been a long time since they last met. Why else would they be addressing each other by their full names when they reunite?
Ellie Sattler.
Alan Grant.
Now, one thing that is here that I was hoping to see was Grant and Sattler being an item again, after Jurassic Park 3 had them split for no good reason. From what I understand, JP3 director Joe Johnston didn't feel great about the 17-year age difference between Sam Neill and Laura Dern, and that's why he had them separate in that movie. But honestly, I never would have guessed that Laura Dern was only 26 when doing Jurassic Park. I would have thought that she was in her 30s, no offense to her. And regardless, they were both consenting adults, whether we're talking the actors or the characters. I mean, I don't think there's a significant amount of people who feel queasy about Jeff Goldblum being twice the age of his current wife. Anyway, though, I smiled when some sparks started flying between Grant and Sattler again. We all kinda knew that they were going to get back together in this movie, and it becomes obvious it's going in that direction when Alan asks Ellie about her family. She tells him that it's over between her and Mark Degler, and he responds with, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And every single person in the audience is like, sure you are. Though their chemistry could have used fewer awkward vibes. Now, when you suddenly find yourself face to face with your old flame and you still got a picture of the two of you hanging in your office, I get it. That's going to be awkward no matter how old you are. But when you look at their relationship in the first movie, it was clearly there, but it wasn't like fate constantly yelling at them that they're meant to be. I'm talking parts in Dominion like Ellie waking up to find her head on Alan's shoulder, or the two of them tumbling out of the locust containment unit one on top of the other, and they find themselves looking into each other's eyes. Cutesy scenes like that I think we saw enough of with Claire and Owen in the last two movies. I feel that the romantic tension between Grant and Sattler should have been written to be a little more dignified. And something I felt was a little bit of another missed opportunity is that they're the first ones who find Macy and help her escape. When it looked like there was going to be a stretch of the movie with the three of them together, I thought this could be sort of like Grant getting to do what he missed his chance to do with Ellie, helping raise a child with her, even if just for one day. But it didn't really come across that way. A lot of it was just Macy watching and listening in on Alan and Ellie and knowing that there's something going on between them. We're just old friends. What she said. We're just old friends. Really? Also, one small detail that I wasn't really a fan of, Grant losing his hat to a Dimetrodon. I can't really explain why, I just didn't care for that. There are still parts with Dr. Grant where I smiled thinking, yeah, this is the man I remember. Like when he's able to identify the sauropod far below him as Dreadnoughtus, or when the Giganotosaurus enters the scene and he involuntarily states his knowledge of the creature. And funny enough, probably the most maligned quote in the movie is one that I actually kinda like. It's when Ellie says that Ian Malcolm, quote, slid into my DMs, and Alan has no idea what she's talking about. It demonstrates that Ellie is really up to date, really connected with everything going on in the world, while Grant is not. He's been practically living under a rock, so to speak, with his paleontology. He's probably never even really cared to get online and read up much. As we know, he hates computers. A moment of realization for Dr. Grant is when Ramsey Cole shows him and Sattler the Moros Intrepidus, which, let me just say, is probably the single best effect in the entire movie. You could have shown me a screenshot of the little critter inside that glass environment, telling me it was actually part of a real reptile exhibit, and I'd believe it. Anyway, Ramsey says that the Moros Intrepidus is one of many species that Biosyn has found the way to revive in their purest form with no genetic code mutations involved. Ever since the world learned that dinosaurs were living and breathing, Grant has tried to find whatever room he can for things that can still be discovered about the dinosaurs of the past, because up till now, the genetic codes of the manufactured dinosaurs haven't been pure, meaning their appearance and behavior aren't completely identical to their prehistoric counterparts. As Grant tries to tell those students at the beginning, the rocks hold the truth. But at this point, he sees that there is now truth in these revived animals. This is him realizing just how obsolete paleontology is becoming. The writing for Grant's character excels in this area. It's like every single drop of hope he's had for his life's work meaning something is just being squeezed out of him. It's gotta be hard because he's a digger. That's the first thing that we ever learned about the guy. It's who he is. What else is a factor in this is his loneliness. There are now fewer people working with him at his dig site. It even appears that Billy Brennan isn't there anymore. And so he's got fewer people to connect with. And so now, all he can think about is that life with Ellie that he lost. Because at the end of the day, what's the point in doing what you love if you're not doing it with the people you love? The part that honestly did get me was one simple line from Alan when, in the old amber mine, Ellie apologizes for dragging him along on this adventure, saying that he must have been happy enough in his element. He then stops her and, seemingly almost on the brink of tears, he just bluntly says, "Ellie, I wasn't happy." I should love this. I should love this movie. It's little moments like that that make me feel all the more disheartened that I don't. Sorry. I'm sorry. Well, you're tearing me apart, Jurassic World Dominion. That helps. That helps. And towards the end, we get one singular instance, one isolated 20 seconds of pure satisfaction I got from this movie. It's when everyone is preparing for the plane ride home. Ellie offers for Grant to come with her, but says she understands if he needs to get back to his dig. But Alan makes his decision. Ellie, I am coming with you. And it was at that moment that, as I was looking for things to like about this movie, I was almost shouting like Barbossa. And they do. And I know right now a bunch of you are probably thinking, come on, Alex, you love it, right? That's what you wanted, right? And yes. After all this time, that was wonderful to finally see. I can't deny. For months before this movie came out, I kept thinking about how I would be applauding in the theater if it happened. And so I did, and I think I actually led the applause in the theater. I just wish that I could have done the same when the credits rolled.
Bad memories. Some were good.
So then, did this movie bring Alan Grant's story full circle? Did he finally evolve? Well, more or less. If you look at it just as a matter of him letting go of paleontology, then yes, he does, and I can at least be happy about that. However, I'm still left wondering, what's he going to do with his life now? Sure, he's got Ellie with him again, and maybe that's fulfilling enough for him, but I feel that his evolution should have also entailed how he was going to put his dinosaur expertise to more contributive use. I can't stop thinking about all the possibilities there were with the premise of dinosaurs in our world. So much potential that was squandered here. While Grant feels useless trying desperately to keep up his life's work, this was the perfect chance for Ellie to help him see that it doesn't have to be that way, that in this new world, he doesn't need to be useless. But instead, Grant, ironically, ends up being pretty useless in this movie. One more thing. Isn't it also kind of disappointing that Grant never meets Blue? After going through nothing but terror with velociraptors, it would have been another satisfying touch to the conclusion of his arc if he witnessed that bond between Owen and Blue, and thus finds a ray of peace knowing that man and dinosaurs can coexist. Just him being present at the end when Owen and Blue exchange approving looks as they part ways would have sufficed. Everything that could have been had this movie been more interested in exploring human-dinosaur coexistence. So I hope that you were able to bear with me through all of this. So what are your thoughts? You agree with my points? Disagree? Were you satisfied with how Dr. Grant's story was completed? Were you not? Maybe somewhat? Whatever it be, let me know in the comments. So that just about does it for all my thoughts on the theatrical cut. Next, I'll give my thoughts on the extra stuff in the extended version that was just released. I'll be watching it tonight, and then I'll review it. I'm hoping for 1 or 2 small improvements, but frankly, I'm expecting nothing. As I've learned to take to heart, expect disappointment, and you'll never be disappointed. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.